I'm going to record another real quick one. As I've said it before, and I'll say it again, there's a reason why whenever some big thing happens, whether it's, interpersonal drama or geopolitical global warfare, always take a step back and wait a little while for things to work out. If you don't wait long enough to figure out what's really going on, you have to make some sort of snap judgment. Make sure you make it very clear to people that you are making a snap judgment. You know you're making such a judgment, and that you are, willing to change your mind if new information comes to light. I am, of course, referring to the Sykkuno drama. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I wasn't a big fan of the guy, so I don't know who he is. But basically what it comes down to is there was a reasonably successful streamer by the name of Sykkuno, something like that, who allegedly got outed as a serial cheater and potential sex pest predator because he was taking advantage of smaller content creators. I believe I made, without realizing at the time, another video about the whole Bao sticking her foot in her mouth situation. Apparently that was in fact in relation to this. It was Bao somehow knowing about what Sykkuno was doing and was alerting people to, hey, this is a thing, therefore try avoiding larger male streamers if you are a small female streamer and he is being unusually friendly to you. Okay, that's a spot right there, spot right there, spot right there. We'll put one down right there, and we'll make this the big CD box. I have no idea how many CDs in total there are in the game, and I have a feeling there are a lot. Alright, we'll clear out a little storage here. We'll make this the building kits. Which there's going to be more styles of building kits that can actually fit in there, but oh well. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. And we'll make this all sorts of plants. Just as temporary storage. We're going to store paint in this box along with some of the other refined materials. Anyway, the long and short is that this guy had a persona as being very shy and awkward around women, having a very anime dub voice. People refer to it as an anime voice. He sounds like the typical English VA doing like a teenage boy in a shounen anime, right? So he had a very good voice. He was, reasonably entertaining and funny. He was moderately attractive, and he got a really big viewership relatively quickly, and he was seen as, let's just say he was one of the nice guys that you could still like. Like, he was a nice guy without being a fedora tipping nice guy, right? So as the story goes, he essentially used his position of trust to, shall we say, woo younger, smaller content creators who are relatively attractive females in order to get basically pump and dump, hit it and quit it type relationships. And as far as I can tell, this appears to actually be entirely true. I don't think anyone is actually denying that this sort of thing happened, but the situation appears to have been slightly undercooked and oversold, shall we say. Like, I've seen the word predator thrown around, and Mujin, the guy who I generally enjoy his videos and whatnot, seems to have kind of stuck his foot in his mouth because he overpromised on this one when it comes to how shocking and horrible the situation is. It's like the guy was being pretty scummy. He wasn't telling any of these girls that he had he had an existing relationship, a long-term girlfriend for, I believe, like 5 years. Like, not a casual fling, right? Alright, we'll start picking up specifically decorations, if we can. Oh, there's still stuff in there? Yes. But he wasn't, like, pouncing on people or, like, that I know of, you know, trying to get them drunk or otherwise incapacitated and being, like, particularly, let's just say, rapey. Like, even in the situations where women have admitted to having relations with him, it seemed relatively natural. Like, they say they didn't want to say no, or they were, like, taken off guard, etc., which is, you know, it's a thing that happens. People, everyone knows about fight or flight. There's fight, flight, but also freeze, which is something that people and animals will sometimes do when put under threat. Instead of you know, running or fighting back, they'll just lock up because there's a possibility that, you know, whatever the danger is might pass. Even if that's not the appropriate response, it does happen, right? It's something to consider. But this doesn't really seem to have been a, like, really egregious sort of, like, oh my god, horrifying incident. It's like, one of the girls who came out just recently said that she asked him if he knew if there was any hotel rooms that were at this event, and he said, oh, I happen to have a hotel room, and she goes, oh, no, you don't have to do that, and he said, I insist, and yada yada. They end up in the same hotel room, and it's a convention. There's presumably single, you know, attractive people in a hotel room. Well, what did you think was going to happen? Yeah. And, like, it just seemed like two consenting adults doing consentingly adult things, right? And we're far enough into it at this point about how important consent should be that people should realize a lot quicker that, hey, this not very good thing just happened. I need to talk about this immediately rather than putting it off. And look at how much, like, coverage this sort of thing happens when there's, you know, the downfall of an important and highly connected person. People tend to relish it, right? You don't tend to be the bad guy when you come out with this sort of thing unless it's the way you're doing it is particularly sketch, which is why the whole Sykkuno thing is not going over as well as Mujin probably hoped it would. Now, don't get me wrong, Sykkuno is probably cooked because he's not the good guy here. It's just that there are no good guys. Oh, nice. Like, he was doing a very bad thing. He was basically he was catfishing. Like, that's what this comes down to. He wasn't being predatory. He was being a catfish. He was giving women the impression that he was this ooh-woo sensitive boy who's really bad with girls, tee-hee, so that they would feel safer around him and be more likely to consent, because that's what catfishing more or less is. It's getting consent through a kind of fraud, which is still not good, but it's not dragging someone into the bushes or roofing their drink. Did that plant literally just pop up as I turned to look at it? I think it did. Well, on the other hand, what you have is a bunch of girls who are admittedly much lower on the totem pole than he is, and who could stand to profit very handsomely. That's another nice one to get. If they were to manage to lock this guy down, and because they all probably thought he was single because he wasn't saying that he was in a relationship, then he's like a really big catch, right? And I've no doubt that a lot of these girls would have not done what they did if they realized they were, helping him cheat. And a lot of them probably had all sorts of regret after they found out he was in a relationship, because then they realized, oh man, I helped this guy cheat. Obviously, that recontextualizes the entire relationship, because it turns out that he wasn't, genuinely interested in them. He was just looking for a cheap lay. Like, I don't know if the guy was a womanizer before he hit it big, or hitting it big, like, triggered something in him, but either way, he essentially figured out the get easy tail button, and he just kept hammering that button over and over again until it eventually collapsed. And the crazy part is, the main reason it collapsed is, from all appearances, it's because the side piece wanted to become the main piece. And that's another big part of the problem with Mujin's video, is that he included audio taken from one of these girls. And if you read between the lines, because this is all like, relationship innuendo BS, no one's like coming out and just saying what they really think or really mean. This Melolel, I think her name is, something like that. The way she's talking to him, it sounds a lot like she is saying, oh no, you cheated on your girlfriend, the poor girl, please break up with her because it's not fair to her. P.S. You can still talk to me. And the implication I see from that is that she's basically just trying to replace the girlfriend, right? That she's still open to the idea of being with this guy, despite realizing that he's this awful manipulative cheater. And like, during the phone conversation, he says that he's going to break up with his girlfriend, and then he's never going to talk to this girl again. And you can tell by the tone of her voice and what she's taken aback. She's like, what? No, I'll still talk to you. And then after the fact, she tries to say, oh, well, I was saying that I was just meaning that we could still be friends. It's like, I don't believe you, right? And it's very likely that if Sykkuno hadn't managed to, like, duck that by saying, and then I'll never talk to you again, and then they had ended up, like, in a relationship of some description, this Google Docie and video would have looked a lot different and would have come out years or maybe months later once those two had broken up. And who knows how long any of these other girls who are now coming out with stuff would have just kept it to themselves, because it wasn't so much probably traumatic as it was embarrassing. But now the embarrassment is also kind of traumatic, but also they stand to potentially gain clout by coming out. So it's like, even if they were like really abused, Mujin does have a point when he says that there's probably not going to be anybody who is a perfect victim. And I think that's because Sykkuno, if not even intentionally, figured out that, please make this quiz easy. I can't remember. I'm going to say dry because he likes nuts. There we go. But basically, Sykkuno knew that he was specifically going after a type of girl who would not be perfect victims. That they would all be trying to get with him because they thought they were also going to benefit from it. Right, so they were like basically clout chasers who thought they had a chance to get some clout when he knew that they didn't. Which is why they're all like jilted ex-girlfriends at this point, because they kind of are, but they're double jilted because not only did they not get the bump they thought they were going to get, or at least get the really great boyfriend they thought they were going to get because they all thought he was a really great guy, either way, and then discovered that it was never in the cards to begin with because he was already with this other girl. So none of his quote-unquote victims are going to be perfect victims. And that's partially because, like, they were in it for non-pure reasons themselves, sure, but also because he was kind of going out of his way to do it like that, right? Like, he knew they weren't going to be, how should I put this? He knew they weren't going to be very sympathetic. And I do have a slight, just out of spite of Sykkuno, I have a little bit of baseline sympathy for at least some of the girls. Because this is just kind of the environment they're getting raised in. It's kind of just the expected clout world we live in right now, right? And I know it's kind of cliche, but it is what it is, right? Alright, we're going to put plants and whatnot right here. And then we'll do stack of decorations, stack of relaxation, and stack of toys. Anyway, that's more or less all I've got to say on the subject. I don't know exactly what's in these people's hearts. I'm not a mind reader. I am just like running on vibes, more or less, because that's all I can pick up from these people. You know, in the absence of a more thorough psychological examination, which I am not allowed to do as per the APA guidelines at a distance. I'm just kind of, you know, giving my opinion, you know, allegedly in my opinion, as the cliche goes. That I think that they were expecting something a little more serious and or profitable to them, got very, very miffed when they realized that was not going to be in the cards, and essentially decided to burn Sykkuno on the way out. And I'm not going to pretend like Sykkuno does not deserve to be burned, because he absolutely does. But not to the degree that the people who were trying to burn him probably expected him to be. Let's just put it that way. Like, they probably expected this to be ultra devastating, and it's just, like, career ruining, but it's not life ruining, probably. And they're probably not going to get as much clout and profit out of this than they were originally hoping. Which I think is more or less fair. We shouldn't be rewarding this sort of lowbrow, reactionary sort of retribution at a spoiled relationship, even as egregiously spoiled as the relationships were. Other than that, I don't really think I have anything terribly deep to say. I've rambled on for nearly 20 minutes as is. So we'll just stop it here. TLDR. Sykkuno, cheater, jerk, or run him off of, you know, Twitch.com or whatever he's streaming to. He probably doesn't deserve to have a big audience right now, because we now know that his entire personality is kind of a lie. Girls, mild sympathy for some of them, because they were led astray by a manipulative narcissist, or at least hedonist, one way or the other. But a lot of them got into this situation of their own free will, probably because they expected to profit from it, and have then gotten burned because they were essentially being offered a job that was not there. Like, he already had someone who was in the job of girlfriend. He made it look like they could get the job. They applied for the job. He made them, like, you know, go pay for the processing fees, which is a weird way of saying did sexy things for him, but it's not a perfect analogy. It's worse than that, obviously, right? But it's just an abstraction. Not terribly great at analogies, and analogies are bad persuasion. Either way, the long and short of it is no heroes here. Sykkuno is the bigger villain. Girls aren't like really villains, they're just kind of suckers, unfortunately, more than anything. And I don't think like any of this is going to go into the legal anything. There's going to be no discovery or anything. No one's going to like spend time in the clink. This is where I was putting food stuff. I'm putting plants over here. Wheat seeds are technically, we're going to say, a plant. Alright, good enough for me. I'm going to wrap this one up before I twist my tongue anymore, and I don't feel like redoing a 20-minute video where I'm already not going to edit any of this.